Hey guys, we're here for the Wisdom Lunch. I am Pastor Jim here at Bay West Church, and we're here to talk about Proverbs and studying the Bible and stuff like that. You know, a lot of people tend to think that when you study the Bible, you got to have a seminary degree and stuff like that. And I think it gets people to where they don't want to study God's word. They think it's going to be too involved. I'm not going to get anything from it. It doesn't have anything to do with my day. You know, totally think that's false. And I'm going to show you how easy that is today. So we're going to jump today right into what we do. What we do each day is we take the chapter in Proverbs that corresponds with the day of the month that we're on. And today is the 27th. So what we're going to do is jump into Proverbs 27, just go verse by verse. I'm going to show you how easy it is to get in God's word. I'm just doing this off the cuff, whatever comes to my mind, and there we go. So we'll jump into chapter 27, verse 1 and of Proverbs, and we'll say, don't brag about tomorrow since you don't know what the day will bring. That's true. Don't get too invested in tomorrow. You don't know what it'll bring. I tell you one thing, one person who does, God knows. So that's another reason to stay as close to God as you can. Let someone else praise you, not your own mouth, a stranger, not your own lips. It's always better when other people recognize your value and do that than you're not self-promoting and all of that, because that tends to turn people off. A stone is heavy and sand is weighty, but the resentment caused by a fool is even heavier. So this is another thing we talk about, trying to not be a fool. You know, because fools tend to cause resentment because they tend to lead people the wrong way. And so don't go with that. Anger is cruel. Wrath is like a flood, but jealousy is even more dangerous. Because jealousy can just hang around and burn and cause all of the inside and cause all of the kind of problems and stuff like that. Anger, at least it's there and it gets over, and it's not over, but it causes problem. It's not good, but jealousy is even more dangerous than that. An open rebuke is better than hidden love. And I think there's some good stuff to that. That's how you improve, when someone rebukes you, when someone shares something that you need to correct. I think that's true. Wounds from a sincere friend are better than many kisses from an enemy. And I think here's your thing. Your friends are the people who are working to help you. Enemies are those who are working against you or for your harm. And so even if a sincere friend were to wound you, they're at least on your side. They're trying on your side, but even kisses from an enemy, you feel like they're coming with something later. So you just watch out. A person who is full refuses honey, even bitter food tastes sweet to the hungry. And it just talks about our appetites will make us, a lack of it will cause us to turn down good things, and a heavy appetite will cause us to just take anything we can get. So be careful of that. That's why I say don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry, because then you just buy a bunch of junk. Don't do that. And think about that in your life. If you're really hungry for a friendship or for a relationship of some sort, be careful. Make sure you have friends and wisdom around you, because you're like, they showed interest in me, I'm just going to go out with that person. Don't do that. They might be a weirdo. So don't do that. Just be sensible and wise. You don't want to get yourself into a bad situation. A person who strays from home is like a bird that strays from its nest. Pretty straightforward there. The heartfelt counsel of a friend is sweet as perfume and incense. I think that's very, very true. Number 10, never abandon a friend, either yours or your father's. When disaster strikes, you won't have to ask your brother for assistance. It's better to go to a neighbor than a brother who lives far away. And that just means the importance of community around you. It's good to invest in relationships that are close to you. I know online stuff is great, but it's also, you got to have IRL friends too. That's what's up. And I think that's the same way with church. I think, it's great to look at stuff online, but you got to be involved in IRL people, because there's just something different about being, having community in real life. Verses 11, be wise, my child, and make my heart glad. Then I will be able to answer my critics. It said, a prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. A simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. And here's the thing. A prudent person foresees danger. It doesn't say and runs away and doesn't do it. He just judges it and then takes precautions to overcome that. People that don't plan at all and just goes blindly on and suffering the consequences, it's always worse for them. Get security from someone who guarantees a stranger's debt. Get a deposit if he does it for foreigners. And you might think, oh boy, that's really xenophobic. That's not what it's talking about there. When it's talking about um, getting security for someone who guarantees a stranger's debt. That's someone you don't know or they don't know. They can't really vouch for. They may be doing this irresponsibly. And we talks about for foreigners, you have to think about the time that you're at. If you're doing getting security for someone, someone's guaranteeing a debt from someone who's a stranger, who's far away, who lives in another country. It's not like just jetting over there or they Venmo you stuff. I mean, that's a deal to go get that if they choose to default on the debt. So he's just saying, protect yourself. Recognize the terrain, recognize the situation, and be wise. It's not saying that foreigners don't pay their debts. That's not what it's trying to say at all. But it says if you do it for someone way out there, recognize the situation. Take into account how long it would take, you would have to expend to get the debt back. Verse 14 says, a loud and cheerful greeting in the morning will be taken as a curse. For all you people who need your coffee before anybody speaks to you, you really feel that verse, I'm pretty sure. So verse 15, a quarrelsome wife is as annoying as a constant dripping on a rainy day. Now, this quarrelsome wife comes back to Solomon. He says some things about that in some other chapters. We've read them, so I think that goes quarrelsome spouse. I think, if you're a complaining husband, I think that goes along the same way. But I think the truth is that quarrelsome, it's annoying as constant dripping on a rainy day. Very true. He goes on, continues. Stopping her complaints is like trying to stop the wind or trying to hold something with greased hands. In other words, it ain't happening. And I think here's the point about 15 and 16. When it says quarrelsome, this is someone who is given to quarreling. And I think it's not just goes with wife, I think it goes with anyone. If you have someone who is just predisposed to be contentious, predisposed to someone who's going to argue at any point in time for anything, they're just going to take issue with everything. It's annoying. It's not good. And it's hard to stop. Why? It's like trying to stop the wind. You can't stop the wind necessarily. I mean, you can shield yourself from it. You can, maybe redirect it, but you can't really stop it. You don't have control over that. What he's saying is that's a character issue. When you are a quarrelsome person, it's a character issue. And the character is what needs to change. What needs to change is not, I'm going to stop, is hold your quarrels in. You need to change your outlook on why you quarrel and argue and complain all the time. You need to change that outlook. That's what changes things. Verse 17 is iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And it's talking about the importance of good company and how you can improve people around you. But I want to show you with that, some of that, when iron sharpens iron, it's when iron hits iron. It scrapes against it. It's in the interaction and sometimes the conflict. But if you have a friend and you are friends and you're working for the best of each other, that's a great place. You can definitely make each other better. Verse 18, as workers who tend a fig tree are allowed to eat fruit, so workers who protect an employer's interest will be rewarded. And I think employers need to remember that. And I think employees need to remember that as they work, to do your best. Lord, the Bible tells us it's working for men, it's working for the Lord, not for men. That's how we should do everything that we do. And I think that extends to our jobs. And I think employers, the Bible talks a lot about how we should treat our employees. And so we have to do that well. Verse 19, as a face is reflected in the water, so the heart reflects the real person. And what that's talking about, somebody said something about the heart the other day and in a video, and somebody goes, well, your emotions are not in your heart. I'm like, yeah, I know that. I mean, I know some people talk about, that there's emotional energy. There's some of that synaptic stuff stored in that. There's some scientific backing for that. But generally, we know that's what the heart's talking about, the emotions. The mind is talking about the logic, and that's what we're looking at. But the inside of a person is reflected in their desires, emotions, and their inner being. I think that's true. Just as death and destruction are never satisfied, so human desire is never satisfied. We can always want for more. In fact, I'm preaching on enough. I'm starting this series this week, and I'll be talking about the concept of enough this week and seeing the beauty in that God created. But we'll be talking about that on Sunday. Verse 21 says, fire tests the purity of silver and gold, but a person is tested by being praised. You think about that? That can knock you off your rocker. I mean, criticism can knock you off your rocker, and it can also inspire you to do better. Praise can knock you off your rocker and get you fat and lazy and arrogant, or it can humble you or encourage you to be better. But that's the test. is can you use it correctly? When someone criticizes you, are you able to take that in and not destroy yourself and just get better from it and do what's better? When someone praises you, are you able to take that as encouragement, not to blown up, and use that as fuel to keep going? That's the test. Verse 22 says, you cannot separate fools from their foolishness. Why? Because being foolish is a character flaw. That's a character flaw. It's going to come out some way. If you're a fool, that's going to come out. Even though you grind them like grain with mortar and pestle. And I don't have a visual for that because I really haven't looked up mortar and pestle, but I can see the imagery of grinding them like grain. It doesn't matter what you do, even though it doesn't matter what you do. You can't separate a fool from their foolishness. Verse 23 says, know the state of your flocks and put your heart into caring for your herds, for riches don't last, and the crown might not be passed to the next generation. After the hay is harvested and the new crop appears and the mountain grasses are gathered in, your sheep will provide wool for clothing and your goats will provide the price of a field. And you will have enough goat's milk for yourself, your family, and your servant girls. Here's what I want you to see. This has a lot of application for business. You see that? Know the state of your flocks, understand your resources and where they are, and put your heart into caring for your herds. Care for what your business interests are, because your riches won't last. You need to keep going and be wise. There's some diversification that goes on in here. It's not about just you got the hay that is harvested, the new crop appears, and the mountain grasses are gathered in. When that job is done, you'll need more. So your sheep, your diversification of your business there, in a lot of ways. We'll provide wool for clothing. Now, it's not commanding it, but saying, hey, here's some wise things. See how it's multiple resources. It's not wasting the resources you have. It's making the most and being a good steward of the things that you have and getting the most out of them as well. And you will have enough goat's milk for yourself, your family, and your servant girls. For yourself, your family, and in our culture, it would be more like your employees and those who depend on you for a living. So anyway, or for provision, just anyone that would be. So anyway, that's our wisdom lunch for today. There's some wisdom out of that. I'm sure you heard stuff that was more than what I heard, and so feel free to share that in the comments or whatever, or however you want to do that. So anyway, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Do that. There you go. There's a subscribe. But anyway, we'll talk with you next time here on the Wisdom Lunch tomorrow. Later.